All hope for humanity's survival was lost when the Ktarians destroyed Earth's colonies, until Sergeant Stephen Simmons woke alone and disoriented from cryo-sleep aboard the wrecked starship Relentless. Shrieking alarms and pulsing red emergency lights greeted Stephen as he stumbled out of his cryopod, the sole functioning unit in a vast bay filled with hundreds of shattered pods, their frigid contents, the frozen remains of his crewmates, leaking onto the deck. Groggy and weak, his muscles wasted from extended cryo-sleep, Stephen barely managed to pull on his cryo-suit before collapsing against a bulkhead, his head swimming. The ship lurched sickeningly as something slammed into the hull. Weapons fire. Fighting waves of nausea and blurred vision, Stephen dragged himself to a flickering wall terminal, his shaking fingers stabbing at the control panel until the screen flared to life, displaying the ship's log. The final entry began to play, and Stephen found himself staring into the cold reptilian eyes of a vicious-looking alien with razor-sharp teeth, Captain Taurus of the Ktarian heavy cruiser Dominator. "Human vessel, this is your final warning," Taurus snarled in heavily accented English, his voice dripping with contempt. "Surrender now or be destroyed. Your pathetic species is no match for the might of the Ktarian Empire. We have already crushed your colonies on Proxima b and Kepler 438b. Earth will fall next. Surrender and your deaths will be quick." The screen dissolved into static as the Relentless shuddered violently, the deck bucking beneath Stephen's feet. Gritting his teeth against the pain, Stephen pushed himself off the bulkhead and staggered towards the bridge on unsteady legs that threatened to give out at any moment. He didn't know how long he'd been in cryo, but one thing was certain. If he couldn't find a way to stop the Ktarians, humanity was doomed. The Relentless was Earth's last hope. The bridge was a nightmare. Consoles sparked and sputtered feebly, dead bodies slumped over smashed controls. Stephen's boots crunched on shattered glass and debris as he stumbled to the forward viewport. His head pounded, ears ringing from the Ktarian dreadnought's relentless barrage. The Relentless shuddered under the onslaught, its failing shields buckling. Through the spider-webbed cracks of the viewport, the massive hull of the Ktarian cruiser filled Stephen's vision, an obsidian monstrosity bristling with weapons that pummeled his ship. Suddenly a frantic voice crackled over the comms, breaking through the static. "Mayday, Mayday, this is the colony ship New Hope, requesting immediate assistance." Stephen's heart seized. Civilians, families, children. The transmission continued, each word laced with desperation and terror. "We are under attack by Ktarian forces and have civilians aboard. Our escorts are destroyed. We're defenseless. They're going to—" The transmission cut off abruptly. Stephen watched, helpless, as the Dominator's forward batteries lit up, pulverizing the colony ship. It blossomed into a massive fireball, a miniature sun flaring against the void before winking out forever. Thousands of lives snuffed out in an instant. White-hot rage surged through Stephen, eclipsing his pain and disorientation. He dragged himself to the weapon controls, hands flying over the console, diverting every scrap of power to weapons and engines. The Relentless groaned in protest, hull plates shearing off as it lurched drunkenly towards the Ktarian cruiser. Stephen let loose a hoarse primal battle cry as his fingers stabbed the firing controls. The Relentless's weapons erupted in a furious barrage, lancing out towards the Dominator. The Ktarian shields flickered, the unexpected ferocity of the assault catching them off guard. Taurus's snarling face appeared on Stephen's cracked viewscreen, his reptilian eyes narrowed to slits. "Who dares attack the Dominator? Identify yourself!" Stephen grinned ferally, his fingers dancing over the weapons controls, not letting up for an instant. He didn't know why he was the sole survivor. He didn't know if he could win. All he knew was that he was going to make the Ktarians pay. "This is Sergeant Stephen Simmons of the Terran Marines. That was our last colony ship, loaded with civilians, you alien scum." Stephen's voice was a guttural snarl, barely human. "If it's the last thing I do, I'm going to make you regret ever hearing the name of humanity." Stephen's vision burned red as he gunned the throttle, hurling the Relentless into a furious kamikaze run at the Dominator. His fingers danced across the weapons controls, unleashing a relentless storm of fire that slammed into the Ktarian shields. The cruiser's defenses crumpled under the onslaught, unable to withstand the ferocious barrage. Explosions rippled across the Dominator's hull, tearing through armor and venting atmosphere into the void. Sparks exploded from overloaded consoles on the relentless bridge, searing Stephen's exposed skin. Smoke choked the air as the ship's systems strained beyond their limits, alarms shrieking in protest. The deck bucked violently beneath Stephen's feet as the inertial dampers struggled to compensate. The proximity warning screamed, the wail building to a deafening crescendo as the two massive ships hurtled towards each other on a collision course. At the last possible second, Stephen wrenched the controls. Metal screamed as the Relentless scraped past the Dominator's hull, the superstructure groaning under the stress of the near miss. Stephen's muscles burned with the effort of wrestling the ship back under control, bringing it around for another pass, weapons already charging for the next salvo. "Sergeant Simmons, this is Major Donovan of the Terran Marines. Hold your fire, I repeat, hold your fire." The unexpected voice crackled over the comm, cutting through the cacophony of alarms. Stephen froze, finger twitching over the trigger. He stared at the comm in disbelief, hardly daring to breathe. "Major?" His voice cracked. I thought I was the only one left." "Negative, Sergeant," Donovan replied, his voice steady and reassuring. "We're on the Ktarian cruiser. We caught them by surprise and have seized control of their bridge. Stand down and prepare to be boarded." Stephen slumped back in his chair, the adrenaline that had been fueling him draining away in a rush, leaving him light-headed and shaking. He struggled to process Donovan's words. Marines? On the Ktarian ship? How was that possible? Questions swirled in his exhausted, battered mind as he hauled himself out of the chair, gritting his teeth against the pain that lanced through his abused body with every step. He staggered to the airlock, every movement and effort of will desperate for answers. The hiss of equalizing pressure sounded thunderous in the sudden silence as the lock cycled open. Stephen found himself face to face not just with Major Donovan, but a full squad of battle-armored Marines. Their weapons, however, weren't trained on Stephen. They were pointed squarely at the bound figures kneeling on the deck, Captain Taurus and his bridge crew, fury and hate smoldering in their alien eyes. Donovan stepped forward, his scarred face splitting into a fierce grin. "Welcome back, Sergeant Simmons. Looks like you're the one who got the real wake-up call." He clapped Stephen on the shoulder, the impact sending fresh waves of pain through his body. "Now, let's get you up to speed. We've got a war to win." Stephen gritted his teeth as the medic tended to his wounds, the sharp sting of antiseptic mingling with the dull ache of his battered body. Around him, the captured Ktarian cruiser buzzed with activity, Marines securing prisoners and assessing damage. As the medic finished, Major Donovan strode over, his face grim. "Sergeant, we need to talk." In the briefing room, the horror of their situation unfolded. "The war started 6 months ago while you were under," Donovan explained, pulling up star maps on the display. "The Ktarians hit us hard and fast. Their tech, it's beyond anything we've seen. They steamrolled our outer colony's outpost. We're losing bad." Stephen stared at the maps, each fallen colony a gut punch. "Earth," he managed, dreading the answer. "Holding, but barely. Defenses are crumbling." Donovan zoomed in on a blinking dot. "The Relentless was our Hail Mary, a stealth mission to infiltrate Ktarian space, steal their tech. But it all went sideways. You're the only one who made it out of Cryo." "And the tech, the weapons." Donovan shook his head. "Never made it on board. Which means we're stuck here, no way back unless—" He highlighted a massive structure. "The Ktarians' main shipyard. It's where they build these monster ships. If we can raid it, steal the tech there." "We can turn the tide," Stephen finished, realization dawning. "Hit 'em where it hurts." "Bingo, it's a long shot, but it's all we've got." Donovan's eyes bored into Stephen's. "I won't lie to you, Sergeant, it's a suicide run, but if we pull it off—" Stephen didn't hesitate. "I'm in, sir. Let's make these alien bastards pay." Donovan clasped his shoulder, a fierce grin splitting his face. "Glad to have you back, Sergeant. Suit up. We move out in 10. In the armory, Stephen methodically checked his gear, the familiar routine calming his nerves, but his mind raced with questions. How had the war gone so wrong, so fast? What other nasty surprises lurked out there? He thought of his crewmates never waking from cryo, the colonists obliterated before his eyes, the millions more dead or enslaved. Anger hardened into icy resolve. He slammed a fresh power cell into his rifle, relishing the hum of energy. Whatever came next, one thing was certain. The Catarians had no idea the hell they'd unleashed when they pissed off the human race. Stephen would make damn sure it was the last mistake they ever made. Stephen checked the charge on his rifle, the weapon humming with deadly promise. Around him, in the cramped confines of the captured Catarian cruiser, Donovan's Marines made their final preparations, faces grim and determined beneath their battle helmets. They all knew the odds of survival were slim, but they were ready to make the Catarians bleed for every inch. "Listen up," Donovan's voice crackled over the comm, cutting through the tense silence. "We're coming up on the shipyard. Stick to the plan. Simmons, your team secures the tech. The rest of you with me. We plant the charges and blow this place to hell." "Ura," the Marines chorused, the battle cry echoing through the ship. The cruiser shuddered as it dropped out of warp, the massive bulk of the Tarian shipyard filling the viewscreen. For a moment, Stephen's breath caught in his throat. The structure was colossal, a sprawling labyrinth of docks, factories, and towering spires bristling with weapons. Countless ships swarmed around it like angry insects. Then the shipyard's guns opened up, lancing out with searing beams of energy. But the cruiser's stolen codes held, the shots going wide, buying them precious seconds. "Go, go, go," Donovan roared. The cruiser surged forward, its own weapons unleashing a blistering barrage. Explosions bloomed across the shipyard's surface as point defenses and shield generators crumpled under the onslaught. Stephen braced himself as the ship shuddered, the deck lurching beneath his feet. The shipyard loomed larger, filling the viewscreen, until with a bone-jarring impact, the cruiser slammed into one of the docking bays, metal screaming as it tore through the outer doors. "Move out," Stephen ordered, hitting the ramp controls. With a hiss of hydraulics, the cruiser's ramp lowered, and Stephen charged down it into the chaos of the shipyard, his Marines close behind. Alarms wailed and emergency lights flashed as Catarian soldiers and workers scattered in panic. Stephen's rifle bucked against his shoulder as he opened fire, the air filling with the stench of ozone and burned flesh. Beside him, his Marines fanned out, their weapons chattering. Catarian bodies hit the deck, the ones still standing returning fire with hissing plasma rifles. "Push forward," Stephen bellowed over the din of battle. "Vaults in the central hub." They advanced through the docks, leapfrogging from cover to cover, leaving a trail of Tarian dead in their wake. The resistance grew fiercer the deeper they pushed, the enemy rallying. Plasma bolts sizzled past Stephen's head, searing his armor, but he barely felt them. His focus narrowed to the mission, to the next target, the next step closer to their objective. At last, they reached the central hub, the heavy blast doors looming before them. Stephen slapped a breaching charge on the seam and stood back. The charge detonated with a thunderous boom, the doors buckling inward. Stephen was first through the gap, rifle raised, sweeping for targets. But the vault was empty, the racks and shelves bare. His heart sank as realization dawned. "It's a trap," he shouted into the comm. "The tech's not here. We need to—" The shipyard shuddered violently, throwing Stephen off his feet. New alarms blared, warning of hull breaches and incoming fire. "All units, fall back to the cruiser," Donovan's voice crackled over the comm, tight with strain. "We've got multiple Catarian ships inbound. They've cut off our escape route." Stephen cursed, hauling himself upright. They'd been played. The Catarians had known they were coming, and now they were surrounded and outgunned, caught like rats in a trap. He keyed his comm. "Donovan, we need to—" A plasma bolt struck him square in the chest, hurling him backwards. His rifle clattered from his hands as he hit the deck, his armor smoking. Dazed, ears ringing, he looked up to see Tarian soldiers pouring into the vault, weapons blazing. His Marines returned fire, but they were badly outnumbered. One by one they fell, plasma bolts stitching across their armor, until only Stephen was left, struggling to rise, his body screaming in protest. A clawed hand seized him by the throat, hauling him upright. He found himself staring into the sneering face of Taurus, the Ktarian captain's eyes glittering with malice. "Did you really think you could defeat us, human?" Taurus hissed, his grip tightening. "Your species is weak. You are nothing but prey to be conquered." Stephen's vision blurred, his lungs burning for air, but he bared his teeth in a bloody grin. "Maybe," he rasped, "but we're the kind of prey that bites back." With a final surge of strength, he keyed his comm. "Jensen, overload the reactor. Blow this place to hell." There was a moment of silence, then, "Aye, sir, it's been an honor." Taurus's eyes widened in realization, but it was too late. The world turned white as the reactor detonated, the shockwaves slamming into them like the fist of an angry god. Stephen felt his body come apart, atoms scattering, as the explosion consumed the shipyard, the Ktarian fleet, everything. His last thought, as darkness claimed him, was a grim satisfaction. They'd lost the battle, but they'd struck a blow the Ktarians would feel. They'd bought Earth time. And he'd made the alien bastards pay. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.